to start, could you just tell us maybe what you're up to, what's going on during these COVID times of being quarantined? You're now in Long Island. You wanted to tell about maybe how you're balancing lacrosse, what you're doing on the side to work that out.
Yeah, definitely. So right now I'm full-time lacrosse. So just training on my own in the mornings and then trying to do as many lessons, either group, depending on parents and what they're letting their children do, or individual. So been doing a bunch of those, and like I said, just kind of doing speed work with my trainer and just strength and kind of shooting on my own as well. So I'm just trying to balance those out and just trying to get ready for this championship series that's coming up in end of July.
Like it. So I'm from Victor, New York. So I've got a couple Albany guys from my high school that have played with you and kind of hit them up, asked a little bit about you. So you can kind of say if any of these hold water or not. But so I hit up Mitch Rupp and John Maloney. Those are two older guys that are kind of like mentors to me. And then I hit up Pat Barrow a little bit. But Rupp and Maloney, first thing they said was he's a twin, a hard worker, probably very under-recruited, and a lax rat. And then from Pat Barrow, same thing, crazy hard worker, loves lacrosse. So what would you say about that? Obviously, I'm guessing you are a twin, but just as far as loving lacrosse, hard worker, under-recruited, what would you say kind of holds water there? And do you think that's
Yeah, I think all of them kind of hold water. I mean, just speaking on the under-recruited part, just speaking on my part and even my twin, we both really didn't get recruited that much out of high school. At the end, it came down to Albany and Sacred Heart. And for me personally, I was kind of not like a package deal with my brother, but in a sense I was. So Albany kind of really wanted my brother Justin, and they wanted me as well, but not kind of as much. So our ultimate goal is to go to school together. So kind of came down to that, and we kind of just picked Albany. But I mean, at the end of the day, that definitely worked out, and I'm grateful for that opportunity that Coach Moore and the rest of the coaching staff at the time gave me to commit there and spend my 4-year career there in college. So, but yeah, definitely under-recruited. I didn't really grow that much in high school. I was kind of on the smaller side. I think I went to my freshman year at Albany like 5'8", 165. So definitely grew a lot more and kind of put on some weight once I got there and once I started lifting and kind of hitting that regimen schedule that they gave for us.
Awesome. Did you so talk about more about your recruiting process? I think every kid, that's like their biggest question, like how do you get recruited? Just in your eyes, what were some of the things maybe you wish you did more of, or maybe you partook in more camps or clinics in that light? How would you describe your recruiting process?
No, definitely. I mean, my dad and my uncles, they were big time lacrosse players back in their day. They went to Adelphi when they were D1. So they kind of helped us. My dad helped us a lot, kind of just going through the whole process. And he was our coach growing up in travel, and he actually coached us our senior in high school. So just going through him definitely helped a lot because he had a lot of connections and he kind of just knew the college coaching features and stuff like that. He coached once he got out of college. So he was like a volunteer and grad assistant at Stony Brook, who would actually coach Canella, who coached at UMass now. So growing up, I always wanted to go to UMass. That was my dream school. And we always went to their summer camps. So, I mean, we definitely went to a lot of camps during our young ages, and then even growing up, kind of more recruiting stuff, like Top 205, Champ Camp, and stuff like that. That's not really around anymore. So what I would say is just kind of try to narrow it down as best you can to maybe 5 or 6 schools that you're interested in, that fit your major and fit your style of play, and kind of go to those recruiting days at those schools. So it's easier to be seen through those coaches instead of kind of going towards bigger groups with 200, 150 kids that all these coaches are trying to really look at. So you don't really getting that much of a good look. So that's kind of what I've been trying to tell my kids that I'm training. They're at the higher level that are now getting recruited. Just kind of, if you have that in mind, if you have those schools in mind, try to hone those in and kind of pick those schools and go to those recruiting showcases that they hold at their universities. But if not, then obviously go to those kind of bigger things that a lot of coaches are at. So you just get seen. And then once you kind of get recognition and coaches kind of reach out to you, then kind of, like I said, go to those showcases. So you could just play in front of those coaches in a more isolated situation.
why do you kind of, just like looking back, why do you kind of think that you were under recruited? Was it just like coming from a small school, or was it just like that undersized type thing? Or what do you think why do you think you got overlooked? Where else were you kind of looking if Albany didn't come knocking and didn't give you that package deal with your brother? Kind of what were your feelings at the time before obviously figuring out with Albany?
No, definitely. I think it really came down to being undersized. I mean, our travel team we played for was Team Long Island, and we had a bunch of kids that were committed going D1. Even our older teams, they had a lot of kids that were committed too. So, and our high school was a decent school on Long Island. So I would say it was kind of undersized, not really growing as much throughout that was back when the recruiting process kind of you can commit whenever you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of kids in my grade and my friends were committing earlier just because they were developed and they were sized, so they were getting looked at. So I think the undersized really played a big part in my recruiting process. But I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of came down to Sacred Heart and Albany, between those two schools that me and my brother were both looking at. I was getting other looks, but not really anything I was kind of interested in. So at the end of the day, it was definitely Sacred Heart and Albany that kind of came down to.
Sort of what interested you in terms of the college? Was it like strictly the lacrosse side of things? Was it the education have any part of it? What was it?
So my coach in travel, Luke DeQuino, he was the first All-American at Albany actually. So he kind of helped us find that place. I didn't really know of Albany, to be honest, like when I was growing up, kind of until the Thompsons got there. And they kind of put Albany on the map. So definitely give credit to Luke DeQuino, who kind of helped us find there. And then one of my best friends, Zach Wolf, who I've been playing with since I was 6 years old, he actually committed to Albany as well and reached out to my brother and I to kind of say, you guys should kind of take a look at Albany and go up for a showcase and just see what you guys, if you're interested and if you like it, and go from there. And then once it kind of was on our radar and we visited a bunch of times with Coach Marr, I think just his personality and just the way he coached, and the way he treated his players was a really big part of it. And just like I said, having the opportunity to definitely go with my brother, definitely played another big part. But it was just a family. It just felt like a family there and a second home. Trusting Coach Marr and just that style of play, I think definitely played to my advantage, of the way I play, kind of offensive oriented as an LSM, and have that freedom. So I think that definitely played a huge role. And then obviously they have a really good business school. So that was kind of what I was going for. So it kind of all fell into my lap there. So definitely excited that I had the opportunity to commit there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like from everyone I've kind of talked to from Albany, they all have amazing things to say about Coach Marr, not just as a coach, but just as like a person and as like a player's coach. Mm-hmm. How does that kind of carry over into how hard you play for him and what you're willing to put in for him, and what sticks out to you just as him as a coach, as like a player's coach, and what was your favorite parts about him just with playing with him, for him?
I mean, I think that kind of just started from one of my visits there when I went with my family, and it was really kind of the first time I really met Coach Marr other than talking on the phone with him, and just kind of getting on campus and him just walking around my family and just joking around, and just felt like another family. So just having that trust between the player and the coach, and him trusting us as well and giving us that freedom to kind of play our style and just do our thing, but also was able to kind of go to him with anything we had, whether it was school related, personal, lacrosse, and his door was always open. So like I said, it was kind of having another father there that really wasn't there because from home. So I think that played a huge part of it, and everything you heard was true. I mean, he was one of the best coaches I've ever had. He's definitely a player's coach. Like I said, the freedom that he just gave his players and the creativity he allowed us to play with, I think is a really big reason on why a lot of kids want to go there and a lot of kids love playing for him.
Love that. I guess we'll jump to I think being just undersized, and I think that sheds a lot of light to a lot of kids. I know a bunch of people reach out. They're like, hey, what workout program do you do? How do you gain weight? Like, I need to get bigger, and everybody maybe jump size freshman year, senior year. Did you sort of do any lifting in high school? Did you sort of have a plan or have a trainer growing up? What was that like?
No, I really didn't lift much weights in high school. I mean, I played football in the fall, so it was kind of in the summer and stuff like that. We did a lot of workouts there and there, but I really wasn't interested kind of in the whole lifting aspect of it. I always got by with just kind of my skill in lacrosse. And kind of looking back at that now, I kind of wish I did a little bit more. Maybe I would have grew or at least had some size, and maybe the recruiting process would have changed. But like I said, I really wouldn't have changed it now. I would have known and playing at Albany. So I did not have any training regimen kind of in high school, whether lifting. And now kind of once college hit, we worked out almost every day. And then kind of graduating, I got a speed and agility trainer and a strength trainer. So, I mean, it's definitely helped me a lot grow from college to the professional levels now. So I would definitely recommend that at a young age to go with that and just be more prepared for the college style of play. You're playing against bigger, faster, and even older kids as well. So if you can kind of hit that a little bit in high school, I think it would definitely help you prepare a lot more.
Definitely. When you kind of anything you picked up from Albany that really sticks out as far as stuff that you added to your training or just preparation for lacrosse, is there anything that sticks out that like you really picked up at Albany and you think could have been very beneficial to you before you got to Albany to help with that recruiting process outside of just obviously the lifting weights and stuff like that?
I mean, just kind of the life lessons that Coach Moore kind of instilled in us, of kind of never doubting anyone and always having a greater certainty than anyone else's doubt. That was a big kind of a term for us at my senior year. And then kind of the two pillars that we used were control your effort and attitude. And we kind of did that. We kind of spoke about that every day, whether it was in the huddle, through a text, through our team. And I think that definitely helps a lot because you can always control your effort and attitude no matter what's going on, especially during these crazy times right now that we're living in. You can always kind of control what you're doing, the effort you're putting forth, whether it's training, whether it's doing schoolwork, kind of really anything that you're putting your mind to. If you kind of have a good effort and a good attitude towards it, I feel like you can accomplish a lot. So I think that definitely, I wish I had more in my high school years and my younger ages, kind of just know that more in a sense. And not especially when you're getting recruited and you see all your friends getting recruited to these schools and you're kind of not really getting that much love, it kind of puts a damper on your day. So just kind of control your attitude and have a positive outlook on things and just kind of be patient and know you're going to find the right school. Everything's going to kind of work out. I think that's a good lesson for these kids to learn. That's kind of undersized or just kind of going through these tough times right now.
Yeah, 100%. I guess specifically, you talk about weight training in college. You have an agility coach. What are you up to now in terms of your training? What's it like specifically?
I mean, right now I've been going 8 a.m. every day, Monday through Saturday with my speed coach, out on whatever fields we can kind of find right now, just because much fields aren't that open. But there's a park right by my house that's fortunately open, so we've been going up there. Just keeps putting me through different workouts. 2 or 3 days we do kind of change of direction, footwork and stuff like that, and other days kind of acceleration and deceleration. And then he also has sent me a plan for working out that kind of hones in on the kind of championship series, just the style we're about to play, and just kind of get our bodies right for the amount of games we're playing, and stuff like that. So just been doing that every day. And then on my own, just shooting, going up to the field, doing some defensive work, whether it's drills, ground balls, stick work, and just getting some shots in as well. So
do you stay away from the weight room kind of, or are you more so agility and
I mean, I was staying away from the weight room just because I didn't have the tools for it during this whole type thing. So I finally just got a bar and some weights and a rack. So definitely been hitting it a little bit more than I was in the beginning, just because I didn't have the resources in a sense. But also like that, like I said, you got to find a little bit of motivation to kind of do it on your own in your garage or your backyard or stuff like that, instead of kind of going to a gym where your trainer is telling you what to do. So it's a lot more on your own and personal level. So definitely been hitting it a little bit more than I have in the beginning, but definitely not as much kind of when everything's open and during the off season. So just trying to find my way through it.
Love that. So I guess I'll ask, we're playing tonight full team wise, location undisclosed. But so if you you're going 8 a.m. 6 days a week, and we're preparing for the PLL championship, if you were able to cut down your workout to say 10%, let's say, of what you're doing now, what would you focus on specifically to get ready for the PLL championship if you had 10% of the time to work out?
I think a little bit of speed. I think that just helps, just especially the style of play that the PLL plays and the rules. I think just doing that and honing in more on that stuff and the footwork and the change of direction that we're really going to focus on during the games and during practice. And also mobility and stuff like that, and yoga that I think I've added a lot more now this year, just kind of seeing the injuries that were taking place and some injuries that I've gotten throughout my years, and just kind of stay as healthy as I can. I think that's definitely going to play a big role in not having much downtime during the series of in between games. So I think if you can hit that now and just try to get as much mobility and recovery in now, that's definitely going to help just in the long run for your career and especially the series that's coming up.
Definitely.
How long have you been doing yoga? There's obviously a kind of a stigma like with yoga. It's like, all right, it's for chicks. It's not beneficial to sports. When did you start picking up yoga? Who kind of inspired you to do that? And how's your body been feeling since you started doing that? And has it been like kind of a challenge to get into it? And as you get going, kind of what's your experience been like with implementing the yoga?
Yeah, so we did it actually at Albany all 4 years, and I really didn't like it at all. I kind of hated it because we would kind of do it in the mornings before practice, and it was the room would be kind of dark, so a lot of guys would just be like, they would just not be into it. Their mood wasn't into it, so I wasn't really a big fan. I wish I kind of was and just kind of sucked it up and did it. And then just kind of this year I started getting into it a little bit more, just kind of seeing some guys that are in the PLL now that just take care of their bodies really well. And one of my teammates from last year, Brody Merrill, just picking his brain a bunch during the season, just seeing what he's 30 years old now and playing at a high level and one of the best players to play of all time. So just trying to pick his brain a bit just to see what he does to kind of keep himself playing at his age and at such a high level. And he said a bunch of it has been due to yoga and just kind of mobility and just treating your body right in that recovery process. So it's definitely still getting a little used to getting into it. I slacked off a bit. It's definitely challenging to kind of, it's not much motivation, just kind of stretch. I mean, I know a lot of people don't really like to just sit down and stretch. It's not that fun of a workout. So just trying to get into it as much as possible, maybe 1 or 2 times a week if I can, but would like to definitely get into it more. But my body feels definitely a lot better, a lot more flexibility. I feel fresher and stuff between workouts. So it's definitely helping me with my recovery.
What have you been doing for finding your yoga workouts? Are you just hitting YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. I also have a Peloton. My family has a Peloton, so just the Peloton app has a bunch of different yoga workouts, and my girlfriend as well does a bunch of them. So just getting them from her as well, just kind of picking her brain of what ones I should do.
And then you've mentioned too, just like the style of play in the PLL, obviously smaller field, a lot of transition.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned kind of your offensive-minded play style through Albany and obviously through the pros. When did you start kind of noticing that being more offensive-minded, more transition-minded as an LSM could be a big advantage to your game? And was that something that you were doing throughout your entire career, trying to push the ball, or is that something you picked up at Albany just with the play style at Albany? But when did you kind of implement that kind of offensive-minded, push the ball style of play from the LSM position?
I mean, I didn't start playing defense really until middle school, kind of 7th grade. So I was a midi growing up. I started playing lacrosse in like 4th or 5th grade. So I played midi until middle school. And then just trying to separate myself as being an undersized guy, just trying to have the best kind of stick skills I possibly could. I figured that could kind of help me just differentiate myself and to see other coaches and college coaches and recruiters kind of see that. So definitely did a lot of practice with that with my brother. Shooting or kind of doing any other wall situations and just fun games in the backyard to help on my skills. And then just throughout high school, I played offense a lot my senior year with the pole, and I stayed on. I was on man up as well. So just like I said, I think it was all the practicing that I did with my brother and my dad growing up to perfect my stick skills as much as I could. That helped generate the kind of style of play I played with, and just kind of going from summer league, and especially, I mean, having my brother was definitely a big part, just because I was always playing with him, whether it was in summer in the backyard during the season in high school, and kind of knowing where each other were. So I definitely had the advantage in that sense of when I came across the midfield line, and he had the ball, I kind of knew he was always looking for me. So I think that definitely helped as well. And then just, like I said, the style of play that Albany had, and just the creativity and the freedom that Coach Marlette, his players had, whether he was a goalie. I mean, he saw Blaze Reardon score in the first round against Cornell. I think that just shows you the way Albany's played lacrosse. So I think that definitely has the advantage. And like I said, kind of the new PLL rules of the shorter field, the shot clock, the 2-point line. I think it's a new generation of defensemen that you're going to see a lot more. People trying to perfect those stick skills and be able to handle the ball that you really kind of growing up, you really didn't see as much of these defensemen that were kind of still kind of locked down, one-dimensional. And you saw Jared Newman, Defensive Player of the Year, who led the league in 2-pointers. So I think you're seeing a lot more D guys kind of hone in and perfect those stick skills just so they're preparing for the next level, whether it was college, high school, or the professional level, hopefully one day. So I think just, especially during my lessons, I'm always doing a lot of shooting and stick skills with my defensemen, not as much just strictly D footwork. I know it gets boring. So just kind of generating that to have a little fun, just to kind of help them out and be prepared for that next level. I think it helps a lot.
No doubt. I think the run and gun style, I think that's what lacrosse is all about. It's all about that's truly what lacrosse is.
It's the way it should be played.
So you talk about your brother. Could you talk to us a little bit about your guys' relationship, how it's evolved? Did you guys have any animosity growing up? Like, who's better? Did you guys compete? How did that sort of develop?
I mean, I think growing up, just having my cousins around, like I said, my dad and my 2 uncles were big time lacrosse players on Long Island, set records in college, or were multiple time All-Americans. My dad actually won the Ray Enders Award for best player in Suffolk County his high school year. So I think just growing up and being around them and all my cousins and my uncles and just kind of competing in everything we did, whether it was playing hockey on the side of my house, playing basketball, volleyball, I think the competition level was always there. And then having a twin brother as well, just kind of just making it easier in a sense of practice and whether we were competing against each other or just kind of helping each other to get better, whether it was I was helping him perfect skills on his end of offense and he was helping me defensively. But I think just having someone side by side working with you definitely brings that competitive edge out. But like I said, we get along. We never really fought growing up. Definitely always competed and said who was better in that. But I think that just helped us push each other to become where we are right now. So
100%. When did you you played a lot of offense? When did you officially decide I'm gonna stick to D?
I think it was like 7th or 8th grade. I started playing defense and kind of stuck it from there. My brother actually, in summer lacrosse, he wanted to play defense. He wanted to try it out, and he played it for 1 year, and I stuck to midi, and he didn't really like it. It wasn't natural for him, so he switched back, and then I ended up just saying like I want to change and see how I like it, and kind of fell in love with that. I think it's just awesome. You kind of tell both swords of, especially the LSM position. You get to play defense, and if you have the stick skills and you play for the right school and the coach, you're also allowed to play offense and push it in transition. So I think it's and all the stuff in between, whether it's the face-offs, the wing play, ground balls. I think it definitely you kind of get both positions in a whole. So I think that's kind of what made me change as well. So I mean, I'm happy it ended up well. So.
Yeah, I always I sort of preach when I'm coaching kids is like, hey, when they say, hey, I'm an attackman, I'm like, don't set yourself up to just be an attackman, be a mid. Mid. Do you think has your IQ developed more because you played that offense? Do you watch film, I guess, more on offense? You learn it from your brother, that side of the ball. I guess how did you sort of develop that IQ on defense and gun?
I think it definitely started from just playing offense when I was growing up. And just kind of always having those talks with my dad and stuff growing up, and he was coaching me and always learning kind of on the fly, and just going to games with him and watching with him, definitely helped. Just to kind of especially when we were younger, he would kind of point out things to look at. When I used to go to college games, like Stony Brook's right by my house, when I used to go to games and like North Carolina or Virginia came to play, and whoever the best player was, my dad would kind of one game a year, my dad would be like, just watch this guy play throughout the whole game. Don't watch anything else, anyone else do anything. Just kind of watch that one guy and just see how he plays and conducts himself throughout the game. So I think that definitely helped just kind of hone in on one guy, maybe for one game out of the year. Just kind of see what he does and what he does well and what doesn't do not so well and kind of work on it from there. But like I said, I think it's definitely just been going back and forth with my brother, like doing one-on-ones and just kind of seeing what he beats me at and what's my weaknesses, and he would tell me as well, and then kind of playing defense and then seeing what I can beat him on and his weaknesses, and kind of go from there and just kind of give him tips I think it definitely helps both of us. So just having that opportunity to go against each other and compete against each other every day, it's definitely helped with our IQ.
Definitely. Love
You
that.
mentioned your dad just telling you games like, all right, just focus on this guy. Is there anyone that stands out when you were growing up before college that you were like really watching their game and like studying their game and kind of looked up to just in the way they played and what you took away from that and how you try to emulate it? And then as you got to college and the pros, did you have any similar roles? And now that where you're at now, is there anyone that you're still as a mentor kind of looking up to and trying to emulate their game, trying to do things that they're doing on or off the field? What was that progression kind of like for you?
No, definitely. I think growing up, like I said, I always wanted to go to kind of UMass. That was kind of my dream school just because I always went to their camp in the summer. And I was there every summer for 8 or 9 years in a row. And I got a relationship with Coach Canelo there. So I think growing up, maybe it was just watching Jack Reed play. He was a really good defenseman. But I also think it was just kind of watching, it was more so watching just offensive guys, just kind of seeing what they were doing. Because like I said, I didn't start playing defense until middle school. So I wasn't really just honing in on watching defensive guys just because during those stages, it was just kind of boring just watching a guy just stand there in a sense. So I think I would just watch kind of midfielders or attackmen play and just kind of see what they were doing to beat their D guys and just how they played the game. And then kind of at the college level, I would say I loved watching Scott Ratliff play in college. He has that same style of kind of run and gun when he won the national championship with Loyola. I don't remember the amount of goals he had, but he had a lot that year. Just kind of seeing him being a lockdown defender, covering the best middies, and then also on the wings, and kind of pushing in transition, scoring goals and assists and staying on. And then once I got drafted to the MLL, I had Kyle Hartzell in front of me, who's been a veteran of the league and one of the best LSMs to play the game. So I think having him to look up to, and I'm always talking to him, whether it's on a Snapchat, Instagram, text, on a call, just kind of seeing what he's been doing and how he treats his body and how he works out and just see how he's been playing for this long. So just trying to pick his brain as much as I can as well.
Did you say something, Connor? Connor, you're muted.
I muted myself. I said fittest player in the league right there.
Yeah, exactly. And even his eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess talking about growing up, is there anything that you would tell yourself at 13 years old that maybe you wish you did more of, whether that's even lacrosse or outside of lacrosse, the game itself? Is there anything that you would tell yourself?
I think, like I said, kind of the weight room and kind of getting more focused on that in a sense, just maybe to see the different way of my recruiting style would have ended up, and focus more on the strength side of it. Because like I said, I wasn't really into strength. I wasn't into lifting weights. I kind of just let my skill be there and just kind of practice lacrosse all the time and other sports as well growing up. So I think I kind of just focus more on the weight room and try to maybe just be prepared a little bit better to going to college and being able to lift a little bit more and just being a little stronger, which would help my game a lot.
When you transition to just playing defense, if you're talking to a kid who's looking to kind of change positions, maybe pick up a pole, what do you think is like the number one most important thing for a young defender to focus on right away? Like you talked about how you don't do when you're training kids, you don't do all footwork stuff because that's kind of boring. But in the grand scheme of things, what do you think is the most important, like kind of step-by-step thing for a defender? Is it to get that footwork kind of in place right away and then worry about the checks and like the on-ball defense, or if it's just a brand new player picking up a pole and looking to get into defense, where do you think they start?
Yeah. I think it starts with just telling him to have a little bit of patience. He's not going to pick it up in one day or maybe even a year. You see guys that make progressions, now at the pro level from college. So it definitely takes a lot of time and hard work to kind of get into that. But I think the thing that makes defensemen so good is kind of that footwork and just kind of even playing style, kind of being patient and not really relying on the takeaway check or the home run check. You see a lot of kids these days, especially the ones I train. They always ask about, what checks are you throwing? Can you tell me takeaway checks and go through that? But if you watch some of these all-time great defensemen, some of them don't even throw checks. Like I watched Joe Fletcher growing up play against Albany when I was committed there, and him covering Lyle Thompson. And he really didn't throw any checks. All he did was just kind of move his feet and stay in front of him and just not want to beat them. And I feel like a lot of defensemen these days don't really understand that concept of to play defense. You just have to keep your guy in front of you and not let him beat you. So all these guys want to throw home run checks and takeaway checks. They want to be all over the place. But at the end of the day, I think just teaching them the fundamentals of defense and the footwork, just the body positioning that a lot of kids aren't being taught right now. I think that's going to be the most important and the most vital in their development to become a great defenseman.
And then along with that, just in your area of expertise, just on the defensive side of the ball, are there any bad recommendations that you hear from coaching or playing that stick out to you that you kind of disagree with in just the lacrosse world?
I wouldn't say bad recommendations. I feel like there's a lot of different things defensively that some people are more comfortable with and some aren't. And it's kind of preference in a sense. Like I like to keep my stick on my hip, my bottom hand on my hip, just so I keep it out. Some guys are taught to keep it just in front of them and not kind of rely on their hip. So I feel there's little stuff like that some guys teach other kids what they're more comfortable with it. So if I see that, I kind of tell them what I'm more comfortable with and what I do, but I also give them the opportunity to do what they're more comfortable with and their kind of preference in a sense, as long as they're doing it correctly. But I think a lot of defensemen aren't taught to keep their stick out throughout the whole game, whether they're covering guys. You see a lot of kids these days that go approach their attackman or midfielder with their stick out, but as soon as that midi or attackman start to run at them, they bring it right to their hip and they're beat right away. So I feel like just kind of teaching that and those fundamentals that you should be taught on day one, not like after 2 years of playing. I think if you can hone in on those more throughout the early stages, then kind of ramp it up and maybe worry about the stick checks and stuff like that. I think that definitely plays a huge part just of instilling that habit of keeping your stick out at all times instead of trying to break it 3 years later. And he's been doing it the whole time for 3 years now. So I think just kind of doing that as well will definitely see a big improvement in a lot of kids' games.
I like to ask is like getting the other side's perspective, because I always talk to kids about like what would defensemen hate for you to do? Like I talked about when I talk to defensemen, I'm like, here's what I hate, and so this is what you should do to these midfielders. Is there anything that sort of makes it hard on you as a defender? Or I mean, I don't want to pick apart your game or anything, but is there anything that's difficult that would make it better for offensive guys that they should sort of hone in on?
No, definitely. So I do a bunch of offensive lessons as well for the child team that I was coaching. So I tell a lot of my guys when they're dodging to kind of change up their speed. You see a lot of younger kids these days are just kind of dodging at one speed and not really changing it up. So I kind of give them the analogy of if you're playing tag in your backyard with your friends, would you kind of run at that same speed, or would you kind of change it up a little bit to make it harder for that defenseman? Because at the end of the day, a defenseman kind of has a gist of where you're going to go, where you're going to dodge, but at the end of the day, the offensive guy controls all that, all his information. He knows where he's going. So I think if the offensive guy kind of changes his speed a little bit and even direction as well, he has the advantage just because he knows where he's going, and the D guy's almost reacting in a sense. I mean, you can guess where he's going, but at the end of the day, the defense is a lot about reacting and matching feet. So I think if you can kind of dodge and change your speed and change your direction, just change the level of where you're dodging to, I think that definitely makes it a lot harder rather than just covering a guy that's running at you full speed or one speed the whole time.
100%. I agree.
You mentioned defense being a big part of it being just reaction. Do you do any like kind of training to work on just pure natural reaction and not just kind of dictating a drill where it's like, all right, I'm going to go to this cone, I'm going to go to this cone after, just work on my footwork? Do you do anything where it's kind of just pure reaction from anything in terms of a training standpoint to help with that? No,
yeah, definitely. With my speed trainer right now, we do a bunch of drills kind of leading up to it. We kind of pick where we're going, and then kind of at the end, you kind of have to react go the opposite of where the guy's going, or kind of match feet with him. So we do one drill where you set up 4 cones and one guy's in the lead, and you're kind of reacting to where he's going, trying to keep up with him and match feet with him to kind of hit the different cones. So I think doing reactive drills like that definitely plays a huge part as a defenseman, just because, like I said, you don't really know where your offensive guy is dodging. Yeah, maybe in a 6-on-6 situation, he's going to try to get top side on you or go down the alley or go down the middle. But at the end of the day, there's really all the fate is light up to the offensive guy. So I think if you're practicing that and being prepared for that reaction stuff, then in games you're gonna be comfortable with it. Because if you're not doing that stuff, right, you get thrown into a game, right, and you're not really you don't have the chance to react. You're kind of light. You're standing on your feet. You're not really moving your feet as much. So I think if you can implement that into an everyday kind of situation in your training, I think it's going to help you a lot.
No doubt. So I guess we'll talk about just sort of your career. I think it's pretty key that every success story has failures. Were there any impactful failures that sort of that you learned from that later led to success? Obviously, you're in the pros right now. Were there any failures that you could sort of harp on that help you grow?
I mean, definitely just kind of growing up. Like I said, my dad was always my coach. So having that sense of kind of knowing you would kind of be on that team, whether it was in travel, knowing because your dad was kind of the coach in a sense. But once I kind of got older, I played up a year, and just kind of going from playing at your own level, at your own age, and then kind of growing up and playing, moving up and playing an age older and not getting as much playing time in a sense of that you were used to. I think that definitely helps you a lot. It motivates you in a sense. It wants you to become better. So I think that definitely played a huge part of it, of being motivated to kind of get better and train a little bit harder just to kind of be able to compete against guys that are older than you. When you get to college, you're playing with guys that are 4 or 5 years older than you. And even at the pro level now, you're playing with guys 8 or 9 years older than you. So I think if you kind of can learn that at a young age, just to maybe that little inch of failure just to help motivate you a little bit more. I think that definitely plays a big role. And even in high school, we had a Nassau versus Suffolk games where Suffolk guys would try out for the top 40 team, and then it would break down to top 20. So going through that, I tried out 2 or 3 times for that, starting in 9th grade, and I never made it past the first round. So I think just kind of, especially not getting recruited as much as well, going through that process, I think that also motivated me a lot, just kind of get out more on my own and work a little bit harder to help myself get to that next level, whether it was college, and then there from college to the pro level. And just kind of being told that I was undersized, that maybe some coaches wouldn't have room for me at the college level, but that was room for my brother, definitely helped motivate me a lot too.
So with those failures, you got cut in the first round. Sort of what were your initial thoughts, sort of how you took it? Did you go, hey, I'm going to start working out tonight to try, like the Happy Gilmore type style?
Yeah.
How do you sort of deal with that in preparations?
I mean, I think if you kind of look back at yourself and just think about when you get cut and stuff like that, if you kind of ask yourself questions, whether like, hey, did I work as hard as I could to prepare myself for that tryout? Have I been doing stuff throughout the week, throughout the months leading up to it that would set me apart from other guys ever trying out? If those answers were no, then you kind of have to put a plan in place now to get yourself better, and maybe next year when you try out to be prepared for those weeks, or be prepared for that tryout. So I think it kind of starts with asking yourself those questions right after you fail, just to kind of see if you were prepared. And if you were prepared and you went through everything and you did everything you could, hey, maybe we just have to work a little bit harder next time and go from there. But I think just kind of asking those questions once something happens, even after you lose a game, hey, we lost a game by 1, did I do everything I could? Did I leave everything out on the field on that day? And if the answers are no, then you know what you got to work on. If their answers are yes, then you just have to kind of work even a little bit harder to become better. So I think just asking yourself those questions, definitely, you'll see the kind of results go from there.
100%. Asking yourself questions like that, when you look at kind of your progression as a player, what have been your biggest weaknesses you think that you've improved on the most, just outside of like the size thing? Like, what do you think have been your biggest weaknesses as a defender?
I mean, just my whole game in general. I think going from high school and college, definitely just kind of asking myself those questions and in a sense kind of blaming myself a lot for those losses that I went through. Just saying that I could have done a lot more and like stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's a team game. Not one individual mistake is going to cost you the game. So I think just kind of understanding that it's a team game, it's a team sport. That there's a lot of different outcomes and a lot of different mistakes or opportunities throughout games. and even practice that can help generate or circulate that win or loss or the outcome of the game. And kind of just knowing that after a game, hey, it's a team loss, it's a team win. There's different opportunities throughout the game that kind of helped you get there, or that didn't help you get there, that just didn't bounce your way. So I think kind of not having and putting so much pressure on yourself in the sense of blaming yourself in a way, and just kind of learning from that and just kind of growing from that. Just kind of going through the next day and just say, hey, let's work on the team and kind of figure out those issues there instead of blaming one person and causing them for the loss.
And then with you, like, looking at yourself and just from talking to my buddies who know you as a player, they all mention you being extremely hard worker, and maybe you are doing pretty much everything that you can do personally. But have there been any moments where you feel like your teammates aren't working as hard as you, and like that possibly bothers you, and you kind of address it and try to pull other people along with you to kind of get at your level of work ethic? And has that been, like, were there moments where you wish you were more vocal about that earlier, or has that even come up ever in your career kind of as a teammate?
I mean, I feel like that's always coming up. I feel like there's definitely, I feel like every guy's not always having it on the same work ethic. So I feel like there's some guys that are outworking me, and they have to push me. And there's also, I feel like there's some guys that are just doing the bare minimum to get by, and that's helping them. So I feel like it's kind of preference. It's kind of opinionated in the sense of some guys have different opinions. Some guys have different work ethics and just some different stuff going on as well. So I think instead of just kind of honing in and kind of getting on guys, I think you just kind of have to look at the situation, just kind of see what they're going through, and just kind of see their mental capacity and their physical capacity as well, and just kind of see and just know what the situation is. But I mean, if it's someone like one of my best friends that I'm really close with on the team, and I see they're not really working hard, I'll say something to them. But at the end of the day, I feel like I said, it's kind of, you have to read the situation and kind of know when to say stuff and know when not to, and just kind of mind your own business and go from there. I mean, at the professional level, you'll see we're not all with each other, so we don't really know what guys are doing. So it's that trust that you have to kind of trust in your teammates to know that they're doing the hard work and they're preparing themselves for the season. So I think that's definitely a big thing. So like I said, it's kind of just read that situation and understand what guys are going through. Maybe some guys are having just a bad day. They're having a tough practice and stuff like that. So instead of kind of yelling at them, just have a conversation with them and just see what they're going through. And if they say they know they can push themselves a little bit harder, they tell you to push themselves harder, then you have the green light to kind of push them. But like I said, I think it's different people have different situations and they react differently. So I think it's just kind of understanding that situation and kind of going from there.
Yeah, definitely a tough thing going from, like, especially in college. I mean, high school, but college, like going from you're sort of a follower, and then you become just in that leadership position. You got to handle it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, especially being like, I was a captain my senior year of college, so it's trying to balance out that being a captain and trying to get your teammates on the same page, but also being a teammate and kind of not being just hard on guys for no reason. So it's kind of find out that balance, and like I said, it's that situation that you're in, and just kind of read the situation before you jump to conclusions. Right.
100%. Sort of jumping, but you said you played football. Did you play any other sports growing up?
So growing up, lacrosse was actually the last sport that I started playing. Like I said, my dad and my uncles were big behind lacrosse. So my dad really didn't want to push us to just say, hey, you're playing lacrosse, and there it is. So he wanted us to kind of try out what we wanted to do and go from there. So growing up, I played basketball, soccer, football, baseball, and then lacrosse was the last one. And then growing up, middle school, it was football, basketball, lacrosse, and then high school it was football and lacrosse. But I mean, at the end of the day, once middle school hit, it was always kind of lacrosse. I knew I wanted to do it at the next level. So I definitely put more of a focus in a sense to that, doing summer league stuff and kind of training throughout the year for lacrosse. But definitely, I would say kind of for all the younger kids to play multiple sports, it helps you. I mean, you look at all these other sports that correlate to other sports. Just doing that and being a multi-sport athlete, not only the style of play and just being in shape, but the lessons kind of you're learning of the hard work and dedication that it takes to succeed at all those sports definitely prepares you for college and once you kind of get into that real world.
Yeah, that's been one like theme that's definitely come up. Is just like we've asked like kind of the bad recommendations in the world of lacrosse that you hear, and the big one that comes up is, you know, don't just be a one sport athlete, don't just play lacrosse. What have you taken from other sports to apply to lacrosse that have been the biggest benefits to you just from sport to sport outside of just the hard work and just camaraderie of being on a different team?
I mean, I think just especially in high school, it's kind of that balance of playing another sport, just kind of you get a different feel for things. So it's not all full-time lacrosse. Like it's not all you're thinking about. You can kind of spread your knowledge and just your fun factor to other sports. But I think, like I said, basketball, I mean, defense in basketball is kind of the same thing as lacrosse. You're moving your feet. You can't really throw any checks or use your hands as much. So I think it involves a lot of footwork. And then football, just kind of the physicality part and stuff like that. And I mean, you're just in better shape playing multi-sports. You're always ready for the following season instead of kind of not playing anything in the fall and just leading up to lacrosse. It's all basically on you. But I think at the end of the day, just playing multiple sports, it's all about the team and the camaraderie of the team and just that teamwork and that you kind of can instill in you throughout sports and then kind of lead you to whether it's schoolwork or college or the real world in the job sense of just kind of working well with teams and working well with others.
Yeah. So you grew up in Long Island,
yes,
lacrosse,
the Mecca of lacrosse.
Mecca of lacrosse. So you sort of had a good situation in terms of growing around some of the best players and be able to watch them. Where do you see lacrosse in 10 years from now? Maybe you've sort of gone around the country and coached a little bit. Where do you see it? And if you had the resources to grow the game unlimited, how would you do it?
I mean, I think you see it now, just lacrosse spreading to different states that kind of maybe you would never think of. When I was growing up in high school, my dad used to run a camp in Florida. So when I was in high school 7, 8 years ago, however long ago, you kind of see lacrosse going from not really known and a lot of kids that were kind of hesitant just because it was big time football. Florida's a big time football school, to now these kids coming out for lacrosse and just kind of going throughout. We did it for 4 or 5 years, just going from that year 1 now to year 5 or year 4 that you're seeing. One, these kids get so much better, the commitment, the dedication to getting better, and just the numbers are continuously growing to try it out and just try to get good at it. But I've had the opportunity to kind of go to different states to travel and coach for lacrosse and do clinics and stuff like that. So hopefully in 10 years, I mean, every state's playing it. It's one of the top sports in the world. It's the fastest growing sport. So, I mean, hopefully it stays on that rack. But if I had the unlimited resources, I mean, I think I would kind of go to every state and just kind of grow the game as much as possible, whether it's doing clinics, giving out equipment, just kind of giving people the resources to at least try it out and kind of go from there and or even bring a professional game to that area to help them see that you can play pro lacrosse and go from there. But hopefully, like I said, it's one of the top sports in the next 10 years.
100%. And I guess I'll transition to, I was talking about it today and just about the game of lacrosse, and you said it, and it's just getting sticks in hands. It's getting exposure to the game. And we were talking about the indoor game, and I was like, you go to Canada and you go to these arenas and you play indoor and they're packed.
Yeah.
It's because they grew up either playing hockey or they grew up playing lacrosse, so everybody knows the game. And you tried out for the indoor game. How have you ever played growing up? What's your sort of take on the indoor game? Do you want to continue to pursue it?
When I tried out, that was the first time I ever played indoor. So it was definitely I tell everyone that I talk to that asks about indoor and outdoor. I tell them it's like 2 different sports in a sense, because the rules are all different. Going from playing defense in field to going to try out and play defense in box. I'm covering a guy and all of a sudden I'm getting cross-checked in the back, and I was just looking around like, what's going on? So it's definitely 2 different rules and 2 different styles of play that you have to get used to. I mean, I think it's an awesome game. I think it's a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to having another opportunity to try out or even to continue to play, whether it's in the summer or just pick up games. But yeah, it was definitely interesting and definitely a lot different. I wasn't expecting it to be that much different, but it's definitely a whole different style of lacrosse in a sense.
No doubt.
What did you think was kind of the biggest difference from a defense standpoint, and just looking back at you playing for the first time, what kind of stood out that was surprising to you that was so much more difficult?
I think it was just kind of just learning the rules and how the game is played on the offensive side of things. I mean, just the contact that these offensive guys are able to, and the freedom that they're able to do against a defenseman, that you don't see in outdoor, like moving picks and stuff like that. I mean, just in outdoor lacrosse, if I was covering someone, I would never just get ran through in the back with a cross check and just pushed off the ball. So kind of just that first time of just turning my head in the second and getting cross check in the back and seeing my whoever I was covering at the time just cut and score a goal. It's definitely way different than outdoor, just because if you turn your head for a second, right, your guy's most likely kind of to be there. But indoor, you turn your head for a second, and that guy's either catching the ball in the crease and scoring a goal, or he's nowhere near you. So I think just kind of learning those rules. I'm learning more of what the offensive guy's goal is and how they play. I think that would definitely help me out a lot more in the next time I try out, the next time I play. Going into it, I really didn't know much about it. I didn't really know the style of how do you play defense, of forcing guys underneath at some points or forcing guys above. So it's definitely a lot different than kind of the schematics of outdoor. So I think just getting a better knowledge of the way it's played and kind of what the end goal of the offense is, how they're running their offense, I think that definitely helps a lot.
100%. It's an awesome game.
You mentioned kind of growing the game in different areas where they're not as exposed to lacrosse and don't have obviously the same level of coaching as you did coming from Long Island. Do you have any favorite social media accounts or anywhere that you extract valuable content from that you think would be valuable for lacrosse players in certain areas to kind of check out and pay attention to? You're not exposed to the great coaches as much.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different accounts nowadays, and you're definitely seeing a lot of different pros that are either associated with something. I mean, like the PLL, we have PLL Academy, so I think that just seeing those different drills and just the kind of different styles of ways guys and these professionals are coaching, they're different little twists on different drills. Maybe I had the same drill as Kyle Hartzell, but just kind of the twist that he has on one of them, that definitely you see is a big thing that can help guys. But I think Deemer's offensive first class lacrosse, I think that's definitely has a lot of good drills and a lot of good drills I've been using during my lessons. I'm just trying to implement as much. Like I said, I don't really, I know offense, but I don't know it to the degree of some of these guys. So just kind of seeing those drills, it definitely helps a lot. Just kind of generate them with my guys, and just kind of help them in a sense. So I think social media is definitely a big thing. Just kind of seeing all this different stuff that you guys can do. So I think it helps a lot whether you're coaching or even if you're a player and you're just kind of following these accounts, and you're seeing all these different drills that you're able to now do in your backyard. Like growing up, Instagram wasn't that big of a thing. So, I mean, if I was growing up at this time and I'm seeing all these different drills to my exposure that I can implement on an everyday basis, I think it would just help your game tremendously just to get better and just kind of maintain your skill level.
No doubt. So you talked about your dad. Were there any other sort of mentors or people you went to, and obviously your brother, that you leaned on for your growth in lacrosse, and I guess as a person in general?
I mean, I think my dad and my brother had a big time to do with that, and even my uncles, just if they came to a game and stuff like that. But I think I would give that all to my dad, just kind of being there every step of the way, just kind of helping us when we first started, to even nowadays after a game, he tells me stuff I did poorly or something I did well that I can work on next week. So I think having him in our corner, and even my brother just being in two different leagues, and having the chance to watch each other play and kind of seeing, especially coming from the offensive and defensive sides of it, just kind of him seeing maybe something differently on the offense end that I didn't see while playing, and vice versa. If I'm seeing something that maybe he's going against a defenseman that I know about, or just kind of see him play, I can help kind of give him tips. But I think I would give it more to my dad and my brother, kind of just growing up and always being in our corner.
How much do you guys still work out together?
I mean, almost every day. He's been working now. He has a full-time job as well, so it's been a little bit harder. But definitely on the weekends, even at night, just going up to the field and shooting, or lifting in our garage or outside, just kind of always trying to just to work out together. I mean, it's so much better working out with someone else than just by yourself, just so you can kind of compete, like I said. So having that competitive edge and having that ability to kind of work out with him definitely helps so much.
And then your brother, sorry, Connor, your brother has a full-time job. You don't have a full-time job. When did you kind of realize that you could go full-time into lacrosse, and kind of what has that hustle been like? Trying to just focus solely on lacrosse and coaching, and how have opportunities kind of popped up for you? And like I said, when did you realize that you could kind of just focus on lacrosse and make a living out of it for now at least?
I mean, growing up and just being in college and just seeing guys do it, it was something I kind of always wanted to do. I always kind of wanted to be somewhat of a coach, either the college level, high school level. I think that kind of stems from my dad's being an athletic director, and just kind of seeing him coach us throughout our years of being young to growing up, and just having that ability now to being at the professional level, using our platform to kind of give back to the younger generation, maybe something that I didn't have as much. Because like I said, my dad helped me a lot, but not having kind of a professional or just kind of an older person that you can kind of go to and ask for drills and just kind of help you. So I think using your platform that we're given now, just kind of giving back to the lacrosse community and just kind of growing that game as much as possible. I think that's kind of when I noticed that I was able to do it, and it's just fun. It's fun doing it. It's fun always having a stick in your hands. I mean, you're almost getting a good workout in yourself, showing these guys these drills. So it's always you're getting better as well, and just getting shots on it, or if you're doing an offensive lesson or defensive lesson. So I think it's fun. I think it's awesome to kind of give back to the younger kids, something that I really wasn't given growing up. So I think using our platform and using our opportunity to do that is pretty cool to do.
Definitely. So we had a lot of time to reflect over the past couple months due to COVID times. Was there any your biggest positive takeaway over the last couple months? Was there something that you weren't doing before now that you're doing now and that you're going to continue to do, lacrosse or non-lacrosse?
I think lacrosse related, just kind of that mobility, like I said earlier, just kind of focusing more on recovery and just kind of getting your body right and as healthy as possible. I think that definitely you'll see a tremendous impact that has on you throughout your career or even throughout a season, just not getting injured as much or just kind of being healthier and just feeling your body feeling better after games, just feeling more recovered. And then kind of just outside lacrosse, just kind of enjoying family time. I mean, I'm sure it gets away from a lot of people, just your whole family's kind of doing all different things. So there's not as much time to kind of just sit down and enjoy that time and just kind of pick up new hobbies as well, just kind of do different things that maybe, hey, you never had time to do just because you're doing all different stuff. So kind of just having this pause in a sense, just kind of generating more hobbies and just getting more of just a freedom to kind of do different things that you kind of would never do or try. I think it's been pretty cool.
Is there anything that you're thinking about openly experimenting with in the future, whether it be adding something to your training, adding something to how you're thinking about nutrition and diet? Is there anything on your mind kind of that you're thinking about testing out, experimenting with to kind of benefit you in the future?
I mean, I think it all kind of goes back to, like I've been saying, that mobility and that yoga and that just recovery. Growing, even in college, and even my first couple of years in the pros, I never really honed in on it as much as I should have. And it definitely takes a toll on your body of playing these summer games and taking a flight out to wherever you're going and hopping back on the next day and just kind of going right back into training because you're not really having that much time to prepare for that next week. So I think if you can take 1 or 2 days a week after a game and just kind of focus more on that mobility and that recovery stuff, and especially hydration and diet as well, you're going to see a tremendous growth in your game, whether maybe not short term, but in the long run, you're going to see a big impact that has on you. So I'm just excited to kind of continue with that and just kind of see where it brings my game to, if it helps me at all, if it doesn't help me at all. I'm just kind of experiment with that and just kind of see where it goes from there.
What's your diet regimen like? Are you pretty tuned in with that stuff, or are you just kind of general, try not to eat like shit?
I mean, for the most part, I am. Some days I get, and it's just hard, especially right now. There's really not much to do, so it's like you're just kind of sitting around. And if you have junk food in your house, you're like, oh, maybe I'm gonna have that. But for the most part, I'm trying to eat as healthy as possible, especially now leading up to this series. I'm just trying to feel my body as right as possible, but it's definitely temptations and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not strictly not eating anything bad for you. I'm definitely eating some ice cream here and there and stuff like that. So, but just having that kind of balance, that instead of just eating all junk food, having that balance between eating healthy and maybe here and there eating something that's not maybe so good for you is something good to have.
And then just mentioning kind of coming up to the PLL, if you're 36 hours out from a game, you got 2 full days to prepare. What are you doing to get your body feeling the best right before games when you need to be ready for peak performance? And then what are some things that stick out that you like to do immediately following like a game or some type of strenuous competition?
Activity. I think a lot. I don't really like to lift as much, like the day before a game, just kind of give my body as much rest and stuff like that. I like to shoot and just kind of do those things that aren't putting as much stress on as your body maybe being sore wise. So definitely 2 days before a game or something like that, I wouldn't really lift as much or even lift at all, take the day off, maybe do more of like a recovery and stretching type day. But definitely still got my work on the field and shooting or some stick work, anything, just kind of get your stick in the hands. And then in college, I was a big ice bath guy. So leading up to the game, I would ice bath, and even after the day after, I would ice bath. So, I mean, not really as much now that I don't have the freedom and the resources to kind of just go to the training room and hop in an ice bath. But just kind of icing as much as possible, and stretching as well, and doing a bunch of recovery stuff after is something I look forward to.
Gonna be a lot of those in Utah.
Yeah, hopefully.
I guess quick question. So if you had $100 or less, what is your favorite purchase that you bought or maybe of thinking about buying? What is your favorite?
My favorite purchase? Anything or lacrosse related?
Anything under $100.
Ooh.
Somebody you're like, wow, you got to get this. Is there any recommendations you have for people or us?
I'm trying to think. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not really that into like shoes and stuff like that, like other guys are. So, I don't really kind of care. I'm not wasting my money on shoes. But I'm trying to think of what. I don't know, maybe a good hoodie or something like that. Nothing special, just a nice sweatshirt. I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm not really into. I mean, there's not much stuff that I would really buy. So I don't really know.
Simple man.
I'm not sure. I don't really need much. So
yeah, love it.
You talk about one other little thing. You talk about just getting your workout in every morning, 8 a.m. Have you always been like a big routine guy, or was there a moment that you kind of started being like, all right, I need to just bang out my work in the morning and then I got the rest of my day? When did you start getting like more focused on getting into like a serious routine?
I think once college kind of hit, like I said, I wasn't really a big working out like strength guy in high school. So I think once college hit, just kind of getting into that routine, it's just easier throughout the day just to have that routine going every day or once a week or whatever it was in college of lifting and stuff like that. I think it just helps get yourself into that routine, and it keeps you motivated and keeps you wanting to do stuff. Kind of when this COVID started happening, like my routine kind of got messed up, so it took a little while just to kind of get back into it, just because it takes a little just to kind of get into that routine, a week or two. But once you're kind of going through that routine, it's just nice to get a workout in the morning, just kind of get your day going from there, and not kind of working out in the middle of the day and just having your whole day ruined. So just kind of getting it over with in the morning, just looking forward to doing whatever you want to do, trainings and stuff like that throughout the whole day, and having that rest of the day to do, like I said, whatever you want is definitely pretty cool to have.
Nice.
I guess I have one last question. Is there anything that sort of not like keeps you up, but is there anything that sort of pushes you to be in lacrosse and to honestly train every day? Is there something that drives you that you think about all the time, or?
I think it just starts with kind of the love of the game, just kind of always wanting to be better and push yourself. But even like I said, like just not winning a championship maybe last year, letting you guys win it and losing you guys in the first round and the Redwoods in the second round. I think just having that athletic mentality with you of always kind of wanting to win and be the best you can and be the best at your position. That's something that kind of you always push for. So I think once that drive is not there anymore, I think that's when kind of a lot of athletes kind of hang up the cleats and stop playing. But that drive hopefully is there for me, and I plan to be there for a long time now. So I think just having that drive of kind of being the best you are and just kind of being the best at your position and kind of winning championships is something that pushes you forward, especially those losses. You have a lot of time to think about it, like our season. The last game we played was in September, so having now till then is something you're always thinking about. So having yourself to push yourself for that is something that definitely helps me stay motivated.
Love it.
Beautiful.
What do you think, Billboard?
Wrapping up, Billboard? Yeah. So we've been asking everyone just one question just to kind of close it up. If you could put one thing, or whether it be a picture, ideally a quote, but one quote on a billboard for billions of people to see every single day, whether it's driving to work, just getting out of bed. But if Troy Reh could put something on a billboard for billions of people to see every day, what would you put on it?
One quote. Let me think. One good quote to put on. I don't know if I have one quote. I think just more of kind of words in a sense, to like driven, just kind of motivated, hardworking, stuff like that. I wouldn't say there's any other thing. I've always thought about that. And a lot of people have asked me like quotes I was kind of into and what my favorite quotes were, and I really never had much of them. And just kind of, it was more of those words. But I think maybe my senior quote of high school was, "It's not the dog in the fight, it's the heart," or something like that. I forgot how it reads. But just especially being undersized and stuff like that, I think just having that heart in you and that motivation and that drive to push yourself every day is something that I feel like it would be pretty cool to kind of drive by and kind of see that on an everyday basis. But there's really no specific quote that jumps out to me to kind of put on that, but something along the lines of that, I would say, is something I would put on.
It's not the size of the
dog in the fight, it's the heart that matters, or something like that. Yeah, the size of the fight of the dog. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so I think that was my senior quote, so something like that.
It fits. I like that one.
Yeah, so.
Awesome. Well, Troy, this was awesome. This is good stuff. Quality content from a kid's perspective, just hearing a lot of these things, because like you said, a lot of these kids like yourself, they don't have, I guess, your dad's sort of reputation. They don't have your dad's knowledge, and they're trying to hear as much as they can. So to hear from you is pretty awesome. I appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. Thanks for having me on. Excited to start getting this rolling.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Likewise.
Appreciate the time very much. And this is, like I said, like Connor said, this is great.
No, definitely. Awesome to be a part of. So thank you guys.
No doubt.